don't know if you've ever had one of those experiences where maybe you've been kind of stuck in yourself and then something comes along that just kind of jars you out of your own self-centeredness. So a few weeks ago, I was having a bad nun day. Okay, I have those, all right? And so maybe you don't, but I do, okay? So I had to do some shopping, and we're putting on this huge event in Texas, and we're at Sam's Club on the day before the event starts, and it's already hot in Texas. It's like 5 million at 8 o'clock in the morning. So it's hot, and I'm in Sam's Club, and I've got my stuff, and I'm waiting for somebody, but then we had to pass our Sam's card on to somebody else, so we couldn't check out yet. And I think at those times on like Friday afternoon, Sam's Club only hires like 2 cashiers just for fun, okay, just to see what will happen. So there's like 2 cashiers, and they're like, what barcode, dude? And then they get the next thing. I'm dying. I can't even get in line yet because the other person that's supposed to take our card and give it back to us hasn't come yet. So, and I'm of German descent, so I like everything at right angles and to start on time. We're an hour behind schedule, and I'm irritated. All right, I'm irritated. So I'm sitting there. I'm just kind of like, I don't even know how I was appearing, but I was just kind of over the cart, and I'm just irked, and I'm just waiting. You know, we're an hour late already. And I hear this voice, and this voice says, "Who are you supposed to be?" I was like, And I kind of come to, and about right there for me is a little girl with pink cowboy boots on and a tutu, and she's got a little tank top on, and she's got a magic wand that looks like a pen. And she stands there, and she looks at me, she's like, "Who are you supposed to be?" And I kind of like, I'm like, what? Like, and then I realized she thinks I'm like a Disney princess, but she can't figure out which one, right? So I said, I just kind of like jarred me. I was like, oh, I said, "Oh, I'm a nun." And she's like, "Hmm?" And I said, I serve God all the time. I've given my life totally to God, and I serve God all the time. And she's like, And so her mom is just dying of embarrassment. And her mom like is all red-faced, and she bends down to her daughter, and she says, "Honey, she serves God. She serves God, and she never stops." And the little girl's like, "Okay," and she turns around with her magic wand, and she gets back in line, you know? And I love that because she jarred me out of my self-centeredness. But it was a voice that was reminding me of who I am. Do you ever forget who you are sometimes? We know how we forget who we are by the way we live. And a lot of times, I forget. And there's a lot of voices in our life that tell us who we are. So how do we know what's the truth? Can you go to the next slide for me, Heather? There's a quote that I love by somebody named Matthew Arnold, and he's an English poet, the next one after that. And he says this, he says, "If there ever comes a time when the women of the world come together purely and simply for the benefit of all mankind, it will be a force such as the world has never known." Amen, yeah? And I love that because he's not talking about women with agendas or women that are pushy or women that are controlling. He says if women ever of the world come together purely and simply out of authentic femininity, and we come together for the benefit of the mankind, it will be a force that the world has never known. But I think a lot of things get in the way of that, don't they? Sometimes I heard this voice for a long time that says, "Who do you think you are? Who are you supposed to be?" As in, you're never going to be good enough. You heard that last night. I love how honest Chris Padgett and Deacon Ralph, everybody's just being very honest right from the start. You hear that voice that says that. So we have these voices that limit us, and if you know, as we all know in the world, we've got a lot of things that limit us. And the voices tell us to compare ourselves to other people, or that we find our value in other people, or maybe what they think about us. Maybe we find our value in kind of doing whatever we want to do and don't tell me what to do. It's in isolation, it's in secrets. And it's the false image of femininity. Because see, God made a woman to image the beauty of heaven on earth. Can you look at the girl next to you and say, "Girl, you're an image of heaven on earth"? All right? Yeah. Oh, yeah, you are. Why do people find women so beautiful? And something that I love to talk about beauty. I love to talk about the healing power of beauty because a lot of times as women, we don't know that. And beauty is not really appreciated in society. It's compartmentalized and it's photoshopped and it's taken apart. But it's never revealed for what it truly is. Because beauty is a power that goes beyond the intellect. It goes beyond, it just pierces to the heart. And it speaks a language. And God speaks in all that is good, true, and beautiful. And the most beautiful thing he ever made was a woman. You see a picture of Kylie there. You know Kylie Jenner, right? And it's just interesting when I think about kind of celebrities and kind of their life and how they live. And this Instagram photo of hers has over 2 million likes and 122,000 comments. And I just find celebrities interesting. It's just very interesting. You see their life, right? And I think what you must know about celebrities is that their life is carefully managed. So they go to the particular clubs. They are paid to show up in certain places. They're paid to say certain things. They're given clothes for free in hopes that you'll see what you like and you'll buy. You'll pay thousands of dollars for it. They get it for free. Their image is carefully managed. They say just the right things. So I always find it very interesting when the mask kind of comes off. And before I talk about that quote, I just wanted to, can I just talk about Kylie for a second? I know a couple weeks ago she had an Instagram photo of herself in a swimsuit. And at the bottom she says, yes, this is me, and yes, I've gained weight, so I've said it so you don't have to. She's 17. And everything she does is heavily, heavily commented and criticized and picked apart by every single person. Her family came about like this. Her dad, Bruce, okay, world-class athlete. He's been married 3 times. He had 2 kids with each wife. The last person he married was Kris Jenner, her mom. Kris Jenner had already been married before, and she had Khloe and Kourtney and Kim and Rob. And they get married, and they have Kylie and Kendall. Now, ever since Kylie was about 10 years old, she's been on TV since she's about 8 or 10 years old. Her life has been totally, it's in the public eye. And reality, as we know, reality shows are not reality shows. They're whatever, they're edited heavily, so we see what they want. Things are scripted, their outings are scripted. And it's just kind of this 30 minutes of this kind of image of what they want us to see, what the producers of the TV show want us to see. And then for Kylie and Kendall, then their mom and dad get divorced. And now her dad, Bruce, wants to become a woman. He wants to be called Caitlyn. And here she is, 17 years old, and her family has just imploded. And I can only imagine what that would be like, because she's a 17-year-old girl like you who just wants to be loved for who she is. She wants to be appreciated in her natural beauty. And she said herself, like the Kylie lip Jenner thing, she said about herself that those aren't really her lips. She's like, ever since I've been 10 years old, I've been insecure about my lips, so I had temporary lip fillers just to make myself feel better. But she's promoted as the epitome of success and celebrity, and here she is, just like us, saying, man, if anybody knew me, if you saw me for who I really was, would you still love me? So I found this article talking about herself, and I thought it was very interesting, and she says, as you can see there, she said, you need to make mistakes to grow and learn, but I'm just a little different because the whole world is watching me. So I closed my door a little, and this is what I love the most. She says, on Instagram, I'm like a different person almost. I just show people what I want them to see. And you see her putting out Instagram photo after Instagram photo after Instagram photo, and it's like, it's more and more and more. It's got to be more revealing, because something that happens like that, it's almost like an addiction. It's like every time you get a hit of something, it releases dopamines in your brain and it makes you feel better, but you have to have more and more and more the next time to make yourself feel better. So there's this constant wave of releasing selfie after selfie after selfie after selfie. And I don't know Kylie, but I just want to take her beautiful face in my hands and say, girl, you are so incredibly loved. And I think that fills us a lot of times. So have you ever done this before? Like you just kind of get your phone out and you just kind of maybe I'll pull up my Twitter feed here, okay? So have you ever done this at night? So you're on your Instagram feed or you're on your whatever, I hope you're not on Snapchat, but that's okay. Anyway, Twitter feed, and you're looking through your stuff and you're just kind of looking. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, dang, man, she lost weight. What filter is that? I mean, she looks good, right? Okay, so you start scrolling through it and then, oh yeah, that guy, yeah, he likes her, okay. And then you start, her dad bought her another car. That's like car number 3. And then all of a sudden you're like, my life is the lamest life ever on the face of the earth. Like, my life is horrendous. And you just start comparing yourself to all these heavily photoshopped, because you don't want no ugly pictures of yourself on Instagram, right? You're like, oh, my nose looks huge, delete that one, right? It's just the ones that are perfect, and it gives this image of my life is perfect, and I don't long for anything. Ever had that happen where you look for it? Maybe somebody retweets your stuff or they like your Instagram photo, and for a second it gives you a passing moment of satisfaction, and then it just kind of leaves. And then you're just kind of left with yourself. And that just kind of a gaping hole of longing for something more. And if it's not comparison to other people, if it's not something that maybe you struggle with lust, maybe it's not something like that, maybe it's just something people you live with. People call you names like Brittany talked about. I still remember names that people called me in middle school. Words have power. And have you seen the movie Cinderella, the one that just came out, the newest one that just came out? It's very good. Lady Rose from Downton Abbey plays Cinderella. And it's an incredible story. I love how it's done because it's not snarky and it's not sugary sweet. It's honest. And Cinderella, she's this beautiful girl, and as you know, she's born into a family that loves her very much. Her mother and father love her very much, and then they both die. And she's left totally alone. And she's raised by this stepmother, and the stepmother is a very, very broken woman. There's a saying that suffering that is not transformed is transmitted. Suffering that is not transformed is transmitted. And this woman, she married too, and her husband died, and now she's got these two daughters, and she's a woman on a mission to make sure her daughters are taken care of. And she sees Cinderella as a threat, and so she's there to take her out. And don't we know that on both ends, probably? But through it all, before Cinderella's mom dies, what are the two pieces of advice she gives her? Have courage and be kind. And not nice, but kind. And again and again and again, Cinderella is challenged in her heart. What kind of woman is she going to be? Is she going to give in to this ugliness? She's surrounded by ugliness and brokenness. Is she going to give in, or is she going to be the person that God is calling her to be, the person that she knows she's called to be? And I want to show you a little clip from that movie of where Cinderella gets her name, where she's named. And you see the stepmother in all her just full force of her brokenness just unleashing it on Cinderella. Can you play the clip for me?
I thought breakfast was ready.
Oh, it is, madam. I'm only mending the fire.
Oh, future, can we not be called until the work is done?
As you wish.
Ella, what's that on your face?
Madam? It's ash from the fireplace.
Do clean yourself up.
You'll get cinders in our tea.
I've got a new name for her. Cinderwench.
I didn't bear to look so dirty. Oh, dirty Ella.
Cinderella. That's what we'll call you.
Oh, girls, you're too clever. Who's this for? Is there someone we've forgotten?
It's my place.
Oh, it seems too much to expect you to prepare breakfast, serve it, and still sit with us. Wouldn't you prefer to eat when all the work is done, Ella? Or should I say Cinderella?
Harsh, yeah? Where she gets her name, and she's sent off to be broken and alone. And you see her stepmother there, and there's later on in the movie, her stepmother is just going to unload on her. Because Cinderella finally says, man, why are you doing this? There's no reason you should treat me like this. I have not been unkind to you. There's no reason to be so cruel to me. Why are you doing this? And for a brief moment, the mask of the stepmother comes off. And she said, because you're good, and because you're innocent, and because you're wonderful, and she can't even utter it. Those are limiting, my dear sisters, those are limiting voices. Have you ever noticed even the way that society considers beauty, how limited it is? I mean, if I were to ask you, we don't have time to do this today, but if I were to ask you, what are the components of beauty that society says you have to be happy, to be considered beautiful? I bet you give me a list of something like this: to be skinny, and have a large chest, and a small waist, and a thigh gap, and straight teeth, and beautiful hair, and no acne, all that kind of stuff, right? And last year I went to Australia, and I was talking to some teens in Australia, and it's a continent away. And I asked them the same question. Did you know that not only they gave me those same characteristics, but they gave them to me in the exact same order that you do? Sometimes we say, I'm not a very good student. Oh, I'd say we're very good students. And it's so limited. But see, God doesn't create like that. As I'm looking at your faces here, I can see all your beautiful faces from here. And you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of looking at a field of flowers. You're all so different. So incredibly different, so incredibly beautiful, so incredibly unique and precious and unrepeatable, because that's how God creates. And that's how he calls us. Can you show that slide, Heather? There's a beautiful, sorry, I can't read that. There's a beautiful quote by Henry Nouwen, and Henry Nouwen says, being the beloved expresses the core truth of our existence. What does it mean to be beloved? To be loved? To be chosen? Did you know that before your parents ever came together to conceive you, you already existed in the mind of God? In one of the Psalms, King David says, God says, I knit you in your mother's womb. You are fearfully and wonderfully made. And how often our whole life depends on what other people think of us. If somebody says something to us, we have a great day. If somebody doesn't say something, we have a bad day. If somebody makes some comments on our feeds, whatever, for social media feed, it like destroys us. And we're made for so much more. And the power and the beauty of a woman, her fierceness, her tenderness, her kindness. And one of my favorite stories, and I tell this story a lot, so if you've heard me tell it before, you just bear with me, but I worked at a daycare for 8 years in Seattle. And I watched kids, like little kids, you know? And if you've ever watched little kids, 20, 25 little kids every day after school, you know that about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you got some meltdowns that start to happen. It got wailing and gnashing of teeth. Okay, Legos explode, Barbie's heads comes off, things like that. All kinds of things happen. And we love those children. Oh my gosh, we love them. And I don't live in Seattle anymore, but I got to see some of them when I went back there in December, and they're grown up now. They're in high school, and I delight in them. And the sisters still work the daycare. But for all the years that I was there, you know what? I'm not the mother of these children. I love them like you can't even believe, but I'm not their mother. And every now and then, one of the kids at about 4:30 in the afternoon would have a complete and total meltdown. And he would just start crying, just sobbing. And we come over to him and be like, hey, come on, what's wrong? And he just can't even get the words out, just sobbing, like, you know, the kid's crying so much they can't even utter a word. And what I realize is that they're probably not feeling well. So I've got to call mom, but see, mom's a single mom. God bless single moms. Oh my gosh, what a hard job. Did you know 90% of all households that have a single parent are headed up by single moms? Hard job. And I don't want to call mom because mom's a single mom and she already missed work last week because one of her other kids was sick. And if I call her, she's going to have to go to her boss and say, I got to go get my child because my child's sick. But I don't know what else to do. So I call mom on the phone like, Mom, can you come get your child? I don't think he's feeling well. And as soon as she hears that her baby is sick, her voice instantly is one of concern. And she's like, I'll be right there, sister. I'll be right there. And about 20 minutes later, you hear a knock on the door like, and it's a mom. And mom's a mom on a mission because her baby's sick. And she comes into our daycare and she's scanning all the kids looking for her little baby. She comes in like that. And you know what? Sometimes that little boy will see her before she sees him. And he just takes off running across the floor. And he's got Legos in his hand, and he's just sobbing, and she sees her baby, who's so broken and crying, and she opens her arms, and she scoops down, and she picks him up, and she puts him right on her heart. And she stands there in front of the daycare, in front of all the kids. She doesn't care. She just rocks that little boy back and forth, and he's sobbing. And she says, it's okay, baby. It's okay. Mama's here. You're safe. Mama's here. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And eventually, she rocks him back and forth, and she gets him to do what none of us could do. She gets him to stop crying. And she sets him down. And she goes into the closet, and she gets a little backpack and his jacket, and she puts it on, and she takes him by the hand, and she says, okay, we're going to go to the store, okay? He's like, okay, Mommy. And she takes him by the hand. She says, thanks, sister. I'll see you tomorrow. That is the heart of a woman, that she sees the broken, she sees the lost, she's attentive to the person, and she knows what the needs are. In a group of people, it's a woman who will usually notice when somebody's not feeling well. So if you're hanging out with your friends and you go home and you tell your mom's like, how was your night? And you're like, I don't know. Like, Hannah, she's not feeling well. Your mom's like, how do you know? She's like, I don't know, I just know. Like, we went out, we had her favorite food, she barely touched it. I don't know, she's not talking to me, but I know something's not right. Have you ever just known something? Like, you just know? Like, how do you know? I don't know, but I just know, right? Moms have mom radar. They've got like, my mom's got like mom, like super long mom radar. She's just like, no. I'm like, how do you know that? She's like, I just know. Stop messing up. I'm like, okay, Mom, you know. Stop doing that. It's kind of scary, you know. Just know stuff, this gift of intuition that we have. The way that our beauty, our way our bodies are made, they're so beautiful. And they come in all shapes and sizes. And unfortunately, we're told you're only beautiful if you weigh like 95 pounds and all that. Oh my gosh, our bodies are so beautiful. They reveal who we are as a person. We have a body, we are a body, we are this beautiful creature, and our bodies are soft and round and they're curved and they bring people in. One of the most tender images that we know is of a woman holding a child, the safety of her arms, the safety of her comfort. We usually smell better than guys too, you know what I'm saying? Like, we just smell better. If this was a bunch of guys, it'd be kind of rank, but it's not. It smells lovely, y'all look nice, right? You know? We're just different. And the difference is a good thing because, you know, the different is a compliment. We're meant to go together. Our bodies and our souls and our minds are meant to go together. Men and women are complementary, not contradictory. So who we are, my dear sisters, matters. Who you live as a woman matters. I want to talk for a second about the beautiful woman. Can you pull up that slide, Heather, for me? The one you have on, thank you. This lady, anybody know her? Our Lady Guadalupe, all right, yep. And I love this, in her appearance to Juan Diego, and I didn't grow up in Texas, I grew up in Washington State, and I could never quite figure out the whole Our Lady Guadalupe thing. I saw people with Our Lady Guadalupe tattoos and air fresheners and bedazzled jackets. I'm like, what is that, right? I didn't get it. Not until I started studying the image. Because you know the story that Juan Diego, she appears to Juan Diego, and I'm going to make this very brief. He has to go to the bishop and prove that Our Lady is really appearing, and so he gathers up these roses that don't even grow in Mexico. They only grow in Spain, and they're growing in winter, and he gathers up in his tilma, his cactus fiber tilma, and he goes to the bishop to prove that Our Lady is indeed appearing to him, and as he opens his tilma, the roses spill out. This image is imprinted on the tilma. To this day, scientists cannot figure out what the painting is made of. It has no brush strokes. There's no artistry. It's just imprinted on the material. The image actually hovers above the tilma. And check this out. It remains at 98.6 degrees at all times, like a body. In her eyes, scientists have found the images of Juan Diego presenting the roses to the bishop, but the eyes aren't flat. The eyes are round like a living eye. I read that about 1795, there was a worker in the cathedral cleaning the glass, and he actually spilled nitric acid on the tilma. The tilma, over 30 days, repaired itself. This woman's alive. She's a maiden, she's a virgin, isn't that incredible? And she came at a time of society where people were sacrificing their children, and there was great darkness. And she comes in the color of royalty, of the Aztec royalty at the time. And she stands in front of their sun god, and she stands on the moon, and she comes with a black sash, initiating that she's a virgin, but she's also pregnant. She's a virgin who's with child. And she comes in prayer. She comes, some say, as like a warrior dance. She who crushes the head of Satan. And for a long time, these are some of her words that she says to Juan Diego, because Juan Diego's kind of terrified, and one day he doesn't want to see her because he's kind of freaked out, so he tries to go around the mountains so he can't see her. And she's like, and she comes like, hey. And she says, listen, I'll read it to you. Put it in your heart that the thing that frightens you, the thing that afflicts you is nothing. Do not let it disturb you. Am I not here, I who am your mother? Are you not under my shadow and my protection? Am I not the source of your joy? Are you not in the hollow of my mantle and the crossing of my arms? Do you need anything more? Let nothing else worry you or disturb you. And to be quite honest with you, for a long time I had a struggle with our Blessed Mother. Because my life growing up was very broken. I mean, sometimes I tell my conversion story, but a very, very brief kind of condensation of that is I was conceived out of wedlock. My biological parents were in high school. They were 17 years old. Obviously not married and obviously doing something they shouldn't have been doing. And I was the product of their union. And this was right after Roe versus Wade was passed. And I don't know my biological mother to this day. I don't know them. But I do have a deep intuition that at one point, my 17-year-old unwed mother thought of aborting me. But she didn't. And I stand here before you today because a scared teenager said yes to life, and I was the child in her womb. I was given up for adoption, and I was adopted when I was 3 months old. And my mom and dad loved me very, very much. And when I found out that I was adopted, though, something happened in my heart. I thought, oh my gosh, what's wrong with me? Is there something wrong? As a little girl, as an adult, I can intuitively understand the idea of adoption. I get that. But as a child, I was like, what's so wrong with me that my own mother wouldn't want me? So I began to keep secrets. And there's a saying in the 12-step program that we're only as sick as our secrets. We're only as sick as our secrets. So I began keeping secrets. And when I was about 11 years old, I had my innocence taken from me by an older boy, and I didn't tell anybody. And then when I was 13, it was completely and totally taken from me by another boy, and I didn't tell anybody. And I found that a very convenient way for me to stop thinking about it was to drink. I started drinking at 12 years old. And I had the facade going on, like if I was just skinny enough and pretty enough and funny enough and good enough at volleyball, which I was very good at, and good enough at school, well, then you wouldn't notice. And when I was a senior in high school, I signed a full-ride scholarship to a Division I university playing volleyball in the Big West Conference. I wanted to work at ESPN. That was the goal of my life. And I had this thing going on very, very well because I was terrified that if you saw inside, there's no way you would love a girl like me. And all those limiting voices, all the ways the evil one speaks to us, it says, you're ugly, you're stupid, nobody likes you, you're disgusting, you're gross. Nobody would ever want you. I believed all of those limiting voices. And one morning I woke up when I was 21 years old. I was already an alcoholic, right? I hid that very, very well. And I woke up one morning, and my drinking at that point was so bad that I didn't always remember what happened. So if you're having blackouts, that is not normal drinking. That's a sign of addiction. That's very broken, and I was already having those. And I woke up one morning, and the thing about that morning was that I remembered what I had done the night before. But I also remembered, and it was horrendous, and I also remembered that I promised myself that I wasn't going to do that anymore. And I couldn't stop. I couldn't stop the lust. I couldn't stop the drinking. I couldn't stop the self-hatred, the self-loathing, all the secrets. I couldn't stop it. And that morning I just woke up and I got out of bed and I curled, I'm a big girl, right? But I curled up in a tiny little ball on the floor of my room and I just wished for death. Because I didn't know what else to do. And I thought, man, I thought God hated me. Like, of all the things that have happened to me and the things that I've done, there's no way. I'm like, there's no way God could love somebody like me. Absolutely not. But thankfully, God had another plan than my own self-destruction. He had a plan of limitless love for me. And God started sending people into my life that would speak the truth to me. You have people in your life that speak into your life. They speak love into your life. And they speak truth. And you know, sometimes the truth is hard, right? It's painful. And this priest that I love priests. Oh my gosh, God bless every last one of them, right? Their yes changes the world. Their yes changes the world. And that priest challenged me. And he'd look at me and he'd say, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing with your life? I know you don't want to be hooking up with somebody else. What are you doing with your life? Don't you want more? And I looked at his life, and this man was authentically holy. I'd never met anybody who was authentically holy. And his life was limitless. That man walked with God. And I remember being 20 years old in college, and here I am, successful, but I was so broken inside. I was so hungry for something more. And I looked at Father, and I was like, Father, man, I don't know what you got. I don't know what that is, but I want it. I want it. And that experience of authentic love, my dear sisters, the power of one person living a life for God changed my life. And it allowed me to hear Jesus call me to be his bride. Because that's what a sister is, that's what a nun is, the bride of Christ. That he would call me, somebody so broken, so little, to be his bride. And that's mercy. And that is beauty. And so often Jesus has come to the shore of my soul and he picks up all the pieces of my shattered soul, my shattered heart, my mind, and he picks it up in his sacred hands and he kisses them and he puts it back together. And it is the choice that we have as we learn, like, what voice am I listening to? Because the voice of Christ always speaks. God doesn't limit us. He keeps us away from sin because, you know, sin will destroy us, but God does not limit us. He sets us on a path of limitless life, abundant life. And I wake up in the morning so often, I'm like, Lord, I want to live abundant life. I want to live a totally free life. I want my life to be transformed. And that means, my dear sisters, we must be very honest, right? We must be very, very honest about our life, where we're headed, where we've come from. And we must keep going and choosing love.